and I was $100 short on rent. And I did not, it was the next day was the 5th, it was going to be late, and I was like, you know what, I was like, I'm just going to use this $100, it's probably what it's for, I don't think I'm in time, and so I used that $100 and paid my rent. The next day, I'm not kidding you, in the mail, on the day of the 5th, I think it was almost exactly $100, 101 or something, from like the phone company, some weird check came in the mail that I got. And I was just like, and it was just one of those things that I knew inside somehow that the Lord was going to take care of it. And then after that, I didn't really trip on money too much when we didn't have work. Even though my income didn't match up with my rent and the bills, I was like, how is this going to work? Because I can't pay my bills, and yet I'm going to try to tithe, or I just can't even make it through life. But somehow, like, my money would go further and just everything. And when I get off track and do my own thing, I would be making, twice as much money, or making a lot of money, and yet I was struggling with my bills. It just didn't make sense, But anyway, so in, let's see, it talks about, when it's ending, about these people of faith, in verse 32 of 4:12. And what more shall I say? For the time would fail me to tell of God, of Gideon and Barak and Samson and Jephthah, and also David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith subdued kingdoms, worked righteousness, obtained promises, stopped mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, became valiant in battle, turned to flight the armies of aliens. Women received their dead raised to life again. Others were tortured, not accepting deliverance, that they might obtain a better resurrection. Still others had trial of mockings and scourges. Yes, and chains and imprisonments, were stoned. They were sawn in two, tempted, were slain by the sword. They wandered about in sheepskins and goatskins, being destitute and afflicted and tormented. I mean, that sounds miserable right there. That little section. And it says right after that, in 38, whom the world was not worthy. They wandered in deserts and mountains and dens and in caves of all the earth. And these are talking about a lot of, not just only the disciples, but the prophets, the people of God. Even back to the Old Testament, and people in the New Testament that went and were proclaiming Christ, going and giving his message by faith. They believe what they believe, and the disciples and a handful of them, were witnesses, but then there was also people that weren't, that were before Christ came, that believed that this promise of the Messiah, that was going to happen. And then there was the people after that believed the word, that got saved. And by faith, they were going out proclaiming Christ's name and doing all these, wonderful works and all this stuff. But at the meantime, they lived miserable lives by the world standards. I mean, they were stoned, sawn in half. I mean, some of the stuff, never having a home, wandered. And it says, the world was not worthy of them. They're obviously, their reward is in heaven. You know what I mean? Which is awesome. So to get started off, so it says in chapter 12, verse 1, it says, therefore, we also, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, all these people before us who went through so much to proclaim the gospel and go out and preach it. And now here we are, a couple thousand years later. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. And the sin which so easily ensnares us. And let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Looking into Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand throne of God. So, he's going on to say, Paul always refers to this life as a race. you know, and he's going to run it for the prize at the end, you know, that crown of righteousness, you know, which Jesus has for us. And it's not by works, you know, no work is going to get us into heaven. It's by the grace of God through Jesus Christ. It's a free gift that we accept. You can accept him right before death of the thief on the cross and be taken, you know, today you will be with me in paradise, as he told that thief. And, but, you know, there's something about it. Like it talks in James about when you do get saved, you know, it says faith without works is dead. There's something in you when you get saved, this pouring of love that Jesus is in you, that you just want to share it. Because once you find out, you know, about the scriptures and how real it is, and that hell is a real place, and that heaven is real, eternity is real with God forever, and that we're sinners and we're separated from God, and there's this free gift that we can have, you know, and there's just so many people out there searching to fill this void with drugs, alcohol, searching with different religions, and, you know, there's just something in us that God, every single one of us is called to ministry, you know, whether it starts in our family, and it goes out from there if we're called to go minister, whatever, but at the very least, we're to share Christ with whoever we can, and, but we won't want to be doing that. Why it says, right here, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us. We so easily get snagged. It's, you know, like you're running. I picture like maybe like running the race, but through like a jungle and getting snagged by things, you know, like, because like when we're doing these things, like literally we get snagged by this sin. It catches us up, even when we do get sober. You know, you can be sober your entire life, and I never touched anything. I never did this. I'm a good person. I did all these works. I, you know, helped millions of people. I had this TV show and gave out things and just did all this thing, and still go to hell if you don't have Jesus Christ, because we are born in sin. The Bible says not one is good, not one heart. Every heart is deceitfully wicked, you know, above all. Nothing. It's, you know, by the grace of God that we are drawn to him. You know, God's love and God, we all of a sudden are drawn to him. Like, it is just crazy. Like, I remember when my eyes were all of a sudden opened, I was just drawn when I accepted Christ. I went home and I threw all my drugs away, and I was clean for like a year. And there was times, you know, I've been saved for 7 years. You guys know when I started where I backslid and stuff happened, you know. And, you know, I'll have another example of myself in a few minutes in the other verses. It's like, I've done, you know, pretty much everything you shouldn't do when I wasn't saved, and then when I was saved. And, but it says, you know, to run that race with endurance. You know that, and when he says lay aside every weight and the sin, that by, you know, setting that aside, you know, a lot of times when we have these things, we try to get rid of them ourselves or try to deal with these problems ourselves. You know, Christ says to hand over, you know, let me have your burdens. My yoke is light. You know, he will take care of us. You know, through even just this last time with my stucco business, I've given you guys lots of examples of how Jesus has just, I mean, when I have just like not freaked out and frantically tried to deal with this situation on my own, or desperately try to fit this circle in a square hole that doesn't seem like it's working, but I'm trying to know that's got to be the way, and just wait and pray and wait and pray until the Lord moves and opens that door or does something. I mean, it's crazy, because, I mean, I've had homeowners the next day say, oh, the color in the house is fine, when the day before, the color is completely wrong, and I went by it, I was like, man, that's the wrong color, and I go by it, and it does look different, you know? I don't know, you know what I mean, like if it's so dry or what, but just simple things that I pray, like, Lord, I don't have time for this, and I need help right now. I know it's something small, minute, there's people suffering, but I was like, it just shows that how much he loves us into every little detail of our lives, you know? He knows how many hairs we have in our head. You know, I mean, it's just crazy. He knows so much about us. You know, talks about us knowing us in the womb. And he wants us to help us with these things that are on us, these weights that tear us down. So He can help us run this race, and, as we get to know him more and more, like we talked about last week, dying to ourselves and being a living sacrifice for him, we have to be doing this, looking to him in prayer, walking in the Spirit, and running this race to where we don't have these weights and these things that we're gathering up and trying to, handle ourselves, and because we're going to get tired. He says he wants to run that race with endurance. It's a long race. Our life, even though it's talked about in the scriptures as a blink of an eye, it seems long to us. Even though time does go by quick, each day kind of sometimes seems long, and like when we're having bad times, it seems like it takes a long time. Like from jail, Like jail's like, oh my gosh. Seriously? There's not even a clock in here, and the guard tells me it's like whatever. I just wanted to. It sucks. And then to find out, they don't even transfer you. There's no TV. Why is there any TV there? Oh, because some idiot 5 years ago broke it. It's just like, and just these things. Time just seems to drag. But yet it's at the blink of an eye. So when it says looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith, who for the, that's what we look unto with our problems, And I love it, like when it talks about Peter in the New Testament, when they're out there and all of a sudden they see Jesus walking on the water, and they are all freaked out for a second. They're like, oh my gosh, it's a ghost, And then it's like Jesus like, it's not. They're like, oh no, Jesus. And it wasn't just this pool. It was the Sea of Galilee, was it? Crazy, stormy stuff, and he's out there walking. And Peter went out and he started walking on that water, just looking at Jesus. He wasn't worried about anything that was going on, the storm. He didn't realize he was walking on the water, I don't think, because he was so focused on Christ and getting towards him. And then all of a sudden, he took his eyes off Christ, and what happened? He sunk. But Christ reached down and pulled him up, But the thing is, he had the courage to step out with that faith for that moment. And I always look at that as like a thing for my life, as when I have my eyes on Christ, and there's the storm around me, which is obviously just the cares of this world and all the stuff that's going on in this world. And when my eyes are on Christ and I'm looking towards him, it's just like, oh man, awesome. I know all this stuff is happening, but I don't care, because Christ has me in his hand. He's taking care of me. If God is for me, who can be against me? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. There's nothing that can come against me. It says that we are more than conquerors in Christ in Romans. That nothing can stop, nothing can stop us from the love of Christ. And it's just awesome. But the moment I take my eyes off him and I get caught up in doing my own thing, oh my gosh, like Friday, I had a 2-hour moment of awesome peace and just worshiping the Lord, met a couple friends, and then like the rest of the day, the enemy was attacking me, and I kept my eyes off the Lord and was like focused on what was doing this and that. I didn't eat till 9 o'clock, and I was just a big ball of nasty flesh when I got home. I was like, I was not a nice person. I was just like, Lord, what? And the enemy will use the cares of this world to distract us, the simple little things. When it's the simple little things that we got to look to Jesus for. All right, first thing in the morning, I'm getting up. I don't care if I got to get up at 3 a.m. I'm going to get up at 2:30, and I'm going to make sure that I got at least 10 minutes to pray and read a little Devo, or, whatever, or devotional. So it goes on after that. So looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. The author, he is to talk about faith and what Jesus did. We just got to look to him. So he said, author and finisher of our faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. For consider him, Jesus, who endured such hostility from sinners against himself, lest you become weary and discouraged in your souls. For you have not yet resisted to bloodshed, striving against sin. So, when we look to Christ and what he did for us, when we're going through something, and we actually read and look at what he went through, just the I mean, how does our pride even go up when we're on the freeway and someone cuts us off in